Hello, and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we continue a retrospective on the Alien films with the 1986 film Aliens. This is episode 327. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Hendrickson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the Pan American Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Game over, man. Game over.
Probably the most immortal line from this entire franchise. I cannot think of another line that people quote as much as that one. I mean, say quote something from Aliens.
And apparently it was improvised, so that's pretty cool.
Good for him. Texas, made good. And finally, also in Denver, you heard her there, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, Aliens. There's a lot. I love to get these sort of recaps, high-level recaps from Wikipedia, because they gather a whole bunch. But I'm just going to read very, very basic part of it. Aliens is a 1986 American science fiction action film written and directed by James Cameron. It's the sequel to the original Alien. It returns Sigourney Weaver as Lieutenant Ellen Ripley, the sole survivor of the alien attack in this. It features Michael Biehn, Paul Reiser, Lance Henriksen, and Carrie Henn in supporting roles. Came out July 18th, 1986. Did very well. Lots of good reviews. Also included Bill Paxton and Jeanette Goldstein, who played Marines. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress for Sigourney Weaver at a time when that did not happen for science fiction movies. It earned somewhere between 130 and 180 million during its theatrical run. It was one of the biggest grossing films of 1986. It is considered one of the best science fiction films of the 80s, one of the best action films ever made, one of the best sequels ever made. People argue to this day whether it's equal to or better than the original film in the series Alien, because it's so different and yet so good. It added scope to this world, including all new concepts that we instantly just grafted onto the original, like Marines and whatever. And it's followed by two sequels that I couldn't even care to name, and a bunch of crossovers and other stuff that undoubtedly we're going to.
And prequels. Don't forget the prequels.
And prequels. Movies came after this, and movies continue to come after this that take place much before this. And undoubtedly we'll talk about this. But we're here to talk about Aliens. And actually, I'm not being strict. We can talk about Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection and Prometheus and Covenant and Predator and all that other stuff, all you want. If you want to bring it up, it's fine.
But maybe let's not try to make it a 3-hour episode this time.
Right. But the main focus here is Sigourney Weaver at her goddamn bestest ever. So let's do Drew, Julia, Tony, and then I'll go with opening thoughts. So Drew, opening thoughts as though you have plopped yourself into a theater in 1986. Aliens.
First of all, other line that people quote from this: "Get away from her, you bitch."
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yes, you are correct.
Geez, like I said last week, I actually saw this one before I saw Alien, making Alien feel like a weird prequel to this. I will say, without a doubt, this is my favorite film in this franchise, which really topped with the first two movies. I mean, I don't think they ever equaled these creatively. I think this is possibly the best sequel ever made, or at least the best sequel in modern, what we would call modern cinema. It does such a good job of being its own thing while simultaneously feeling very organically like it is from the same world that we just left. Like, it's got the same aesthetic. it focuses in on a lot of the same social issues. It's still got the very blue collar quality to it. And yeah, with the aliens themselves, it also like adds, we learn more about this organism in this movie, including seeing the alien queen, who frankly is one of the coolest movie monsters ever made. And I don't know, like the characters of the Space Marines, like even a lot of the ones that get kind of thankless amounts of screen time are all pretty memorable. Like, this is just a terrific movie, and like the first movie, it's still incredibly influential. It's influential in its own right. Like we just saw a couple of years ago with Kong Skull Island, that people are still trying to make this movie through other movies. Like the whole idea of, let's put a bunch of grunts together and have them fight monsters, that plot line is going to be ripped off till the end of time. So I love this movie. I can't wait to talk more about it.
Wonderful. Julia, I'm sure you've seen Aliens before, right? Or did you?
Yeah, it's been so long that I'd forgotten everything about it, and I actually thought that I would like it more than I did this time around, because I remembered thinking it was really amazing, and this time I think it's good, but I actually think the first one is better, honestly. For me, I think Terminator 2 is the best sequel. And it's also James Cameron, ironically. However, this one, I just felt like, even though it's more expensive, somehow I think the first one is just tighter. But this one, the things that I liked, yes, I agree that the Queen is an amazing monster. The look, the whole H.R. Giger, as you guys taught me to pronounce it, look, aesthetic is amazing and prevalent. I love the character of Newt. Paul Reiser is so loathsome and yet fun to watch. And Bill Paxton, similarly. And then there's some things where I'm just like I found myself really annoyed that they brown-faced Velasquez. Like, I was like, did they not have any Latina actors?
Vasquez.
In 1986? Yeah. Vasquez, whatever.
Yeah.
I think this was shot in England. I'm not trying to excuse what they did. They should have just made the character white. But I believe this was shot in England.
It doesn't matter. Latinas can travel to England, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe you. I think that I remember, though, on the Blu-ray that they hired, as a cost-cutting corner thing, they hired mostly American actors that had been living in England, because there was a crack about when they were trying to get them to act tough, like tough Americans, that they had been living in England too long and kind of had lost that.
Something that explains a lot about Goldstein's really weird ass accent.
Yeah, she has like a weird kind of hybrid American when you listen to her.
I would
American
love
British accent.
I would love to know. I'm pretty sure I know what he would think about it, but I would love to hear David's thoughts on, because I like I'm sure he would have some words on the brown face in this.
We just used to do this shit. This is just something that used to happen.
Was annoying, and I was also inordinately annoyed by the fact that once again Ripley's in little panties. At least she gets to wear an undershirt this time. Everybody else, all the women included, are wearing boxer shorts, but she's got to be in panties, which I was like, why?
That's really interesting.
That just bugged me beyond belief. But anyway, like I say, it's more than it should have probably. But no, again, yes, the effects are incredible. A lot of the performances are really interesting. It's very suspenseful and scary. So so I have mixed feelings about it compared to the first one. I think it's great. No, don't get me wrong. But compared to the first one, I feel like I like the first one better.
Wow. That's a lot. Tony, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I really like this movie. I do have a couple of personal anecdotes on it that make this movie has a special place in my heart for a couple reasons. When I saw it originally, I saw it with my grandmother because there was this theater that I used to go to in Bryan College Station, and when I was staying with my relatives, and they were super sticklers about not letting in underage people into movies. No matter what, you had to have somebody come in with you or whatever. So my grandmother takes me to see Aliens because she was super nice and amazing. But we go out and she goes, well, it was pretty good, but it was really loud. Every time I tried to go to sleep, something would happen and wake me up. And I started laughing so hard because imagining my grandmother trying to sleep through Aliens with, get away from her, you bitch! Like,
and the clanging. There's this. He uses like clanging all the time in the music. Clang, 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 clang. Yeah,
everything. And I just that was my grandmother had her own ways, and she was super like nice that way. This is the same theater, by the way, which I hate the movie Twins because I wanted to go see Hellraiser 2, and I was like just a few months from being able to see it. Normally, like, of age, and they would not let me go. They would not let my uncle sign me in or anything. And so they were all going to see Twins, and I could not see Hellraiser 2, and I'm still angry about that to this day. Same theater. But yeah, I mean, it blew me away. And it's in the same way T2 works. This movie's vastly different from the previous one. Well, not vastly, but it tonally, this is an action movie. That one was a horror movie. And I get why people like each one differently. This also is the one kind of like T2 where we get a lot of the lore that has become a lot of the Dark Horse comics stuff that comes to be canon or at least feed into what are the aliens, right?
Yeah.
Comes from this one because we don't know very much from the first one. So this one really solidifies that. Also, we had a TV one time. My mom was watching this movie with my brother. And it got to, I think I can't remember if it's the first or second part with the drop ship.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was the exploding drop ship. I think it was at the end when the plant's exploding. But it got to that and everything's real suspenseful. And the TV blew something out and just started smoking.
Oh, no.
It was as if the alien, destruction killed our TV, too.
That's great.
So, we have all these, weird, aliens is just this, touchstone. I mean, I got to give it up for Cameron for also basically going, well, nobody's really up until this point made Starship Troopers. So why don't I just make Starship Troopers?
Right.
Sort of, kind of, but with aliens. Also, up until now, we didn't see the part with Newt's family until until the special edition. We didn't see the part with Newt's family or the chain gun. The sentry guns, those weren't part of the theatrical or not in as much, but those also were in the novelization, which I read immediately after I saw the movie. I went out and got the book. But this movie it looks fantastic. All-star cast, all the way through. Everybody's doing an awesome job. It's riveting. Burke is just every corporate asshole ever. And it's just grating. I mean, he does Paul Reiser's playing it to the hill, on this. But everything he promises, he doesn't follow through. Everything is for profit. They're just the worst. That company.
He is the worst. He's really the worst.
He's up there, I think, with Walter Peck from Ghostbusters as one of the ultimate '80s smarmy slime balls.
Yeah, I mean,
what I love most about his character when he introduces himself, he goes, my name is Burke. I work for the company, but I'm really not a bad guy. That's the funny thing.
Really are though. Is the problem.
That's his first line. Is I'm really not a bad guy, and he is a bad guy. That's really the great thing.
That's how all bad guys see themselves.
Yes.
Well, he gets worse.
I mean, somebody's got to be the asshole. By the way, if anybody ever says that, you're like, no, you don't have to be. I need to get away from you because you probably.
We don't really need an asshole. Actually, that's the thing that we don't actually have to have at all. Nobody.
There are several times when this movie would go a lot easier if he did not exist. If he was not there.
You just kind of summed up all bad guys with that sentence.
Yeah.
He's there so the movie can happen.
Exactly.
But yeah, this movie, I mean, again, we're going into territory where there's a million books, it feels like, written. There's trivia, if you want to know what each gun is based off of, that's out there. I mean, there's just minutia. So, again, we fall into the trap of, hey, where do we discuss a movie that's been discussed to death? And I think, we're going to do it like we normally do, partially winging it, partially talking about our feelings on it. But I hope we bring something new to the table, because there's an amazing amount of data and discussion about this film, rightly so, because it is an amazing action horror sci-fi movie that and we're still getting ripples from it, like the look of creatures from here, the look of how Space Marines are thought of. Like a lot of times we'll get Space Marines like this as opposed to Warhammer Space Marines, which are cool as hell. But when you see a combat team, a sci-fi combat team in a lot of movies, they're basically the sci-fi combat team from this movie, an offshoot of that. And it defines so many tropes and so much of the genre past this. It became a new touchstone for that. And I think that's fascinating. Like as creators, you can only hope that you leave a mark as deep and wide as this movie.
I feel like that like when we just did RoboCop 3 weeks ago, like Jason was talking about the weaponry in that movie, and like this movie also, like if you were a gun nut, like this movie,
gun porn.
Yeah.
Although
cannons on like sorry, Jason.
No, I apologize. Please go.
Like cannons on basically steady cams and all of that, and the sound of it, like the sounds from this movie are changed, aped, regurgitated, transformed, but there's been similar things, but how all the weapons sound and clank around even when they're not being used.
It's so funny. We were watching the documentary. What's it called, Jay?
It's just it came out with the 2003 DVD set.
Yeah,
it's like big,
but it's
awesome,
got a name. It's not just it's like some name and then plus then like colon the making of aliens. Right. But anyway, whatever the name is. And they're interviewing Sigourney Weaver, and she's like, I hate guns. I hate movies with guns. I don't like violence. I don't like anything. I don't get people who like guns. And then they cut to Bill Paxton going, I love shooting guns.
Right. And how awesome is that, considering how their characters played?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
him and his crew of ultimate badasses.
Yes. Oh, so good. Thank you very much, Tony. To me, the importance of any film that we talk about, the real importance of one, you can see it in what you were hinting at, which is the waves and the imitation and the cliches that it creates. And boy, this gives you, in the same way that Blade Runner gives you a hell of a lot of like urban sci-fi with dripping rain and crap like that, this really shows
Blade Runner. Is that what you said?
Blade Runner, yeah.
Okay.
This one really gives you a lot of dripping, like a lot of like clanging, metallic, chunky military sci-fi that just and you realize so much of it is just born here, and that's amazing. What I love about this, I love that it appears to be a sequel to Alien, but it has an almost completely different look and feel. Like almost completely different. I mentioned the word chunky. That's the best way I can describe the military SF feel of this. Go ahead.
I agree with you. The military thing is different. I do not think it is. I do feel like this feels very organic of the first movie. Like
I can dig that. Yes,
it feels like it's taking place in the same universe.
Yeah,
especially
skill. Go ahead.
Especially all the stuff leading up to her hooking up with the military one. Like she's living on that like space station, living out like her boring, space station life.
And everything's
like
in white, right? It's all in white, just like their stupid boring ship in 79. And that's when you meet and you realize that basically corporate jerkwads are going to be dressing the same way for thousands of years, and because The other thing I want to mention, and then we'll just start talking about it. We can just take it all the way through and stop and talk about themes as we go. But I think we work our way through and try to thread the themes into it. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that James Cameron is an extraordinarily skilled storyteller. If you read a script by James Cameron, it is a work of art in itself. He doesn't use traditional screenplays. He doesn't use a traditional treatment. He uses a weird ass James Cameron invented thing called a scriptment, where he tells the story in almost prose, then with dialogue interspersed, just to kind of suggest what the scene's about, and then he moves on. And that thing might be a book long. I mean, and he'll just work his way through. He breaks his stories up into sequences, and one follows the other, and he's just very elegant. Everything is moving the story along, and you don't feel like things are wasted. And I have to say, the theatrical film is even more lean than the one that we saw, because it eliminates most of the backstory and just fills it in with dialogue. But James Cameron knows how to do an action movie where you don't ever feel lost. You don't ever for a moment not know what's going on. You always know what the next goal is, and you're rooting for everybody to figure it out. And that's so great, because think about how, look, I love Ridley Scott, but think about how freaking confused we were in the final scenes of the 1979 film, which is a great monster movie. But half the time I'm like, I don't understand what Ripley's doing. I don't know. Wait, where's the cat? Why is she running there? What's going on? Never happens here. You always know what's happening in Aliens, and that's difficult. I'm just really impressed with this film. Okay, so where do we start? Like I say, I guess we just start working our way through. We meet Ripley on having been picked up in stasis. She has been asleep, we learn, for 57 years. The movie does an interesting thing that seems out of step with the rest of the film, which is that to reintroduce us to things we may have forgotten if it's been a while since we've seen Alien, she wakes up. Burke, the corporate dude, who we'll talk about in a sec, anyway, he gives her the bad news. She's been asleep for a long time, and she immediately gets sick. And now we the audience in 1986, are going, oh, right, like John Hurt, something's going to bust out of her chest. And it's a dream. So that's weird, because as Julia pointed out while we were watching it, if that's a dream, then how do we know that everything that Burke said in the dream is true?
So Burke tells her it's been 57 years. Your daughter died at the age of 66.
I don't think we learned that part yet. That part we don't learn yet.
She says all that. That's the same scene when she.
Oh,
that's the same scene when she has the dream. Is he tells her all this about her daughter? And by the way, the picture they used for the daughter is actually Sigourney Weaver's mom, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. And so then he leaves or whatever, or no, maybe he didn't leave. I don't remember. But anyway, but then she has the births the alien and wakes up. So then I was like, well, so is her daughter in fact dead? I mean, does she have a 60? Like, what happened with the daughter? I was like very annoyed that I no longer know if her daughter's. But I mean, that is when she meets Burke. So presumably she's met Burke. So I guess all that was real. It's just
we're meant to understand that everything she learned in that nightmare she had learned previously, and it's all true. That's the one misstep I feel that this movie makes, is that why are you screwing around with nightmares? I mean, there's
it's a bit hackneyed, even though it works. I mean, I think they probably. I mean, I know they have a chest bursting scene later, but I feel like that's the most memorable scene from the first movie. Maybe they felt like they had to do their version early on, and plus there's something subversive about it being Ripley,
right?
Because I mean, because this is Alien 3 doesn't exist yet, so
that's great acting on her part too. She really does seem to be in terrible pain.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing effect too.
That it's not actually coming out of her chest; it's coming out of her belly area. So there is going on a thing about motherhood throughout this entire movie. So maybe that's what Cameron was just trying to make subtext into text with the scene.
Yeah, and he is trying to. It's supposed to be a big opener, because we've already spent a lot of screen time with not much happening with her. The sleeping woman being picked up in a ship, but now this is happening, and it is scary. So I think he needs to get a scare in there. He wants to remind us what Alien was about, in case we've forgotten. And I say that I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, this is 1986, so you really might not have seen it. in that time, and so that does make sense. They never pull stuff like that after that. This is the only dream that we're going to have. I have to say, let's talk about Burke and Ripley. Meeting Ripley, I thought Ripley is a lot softer and warmer than I remembered her. In my memory, Ripley was like Linda Hamilton, like super buff and tough and ready to handle anything and all that stuff. But actually, Ripley is a very sensitive, sensible flight officer who, doesn't really want to get in trouble, doesn't really want to get into any action, is suffering a great deal emotionally.
Yeah, and she's got PTSD.
Yeah, I mean, she's a really human character, much more than I remembered her. And I'm not saying I had memories of her not being a human character, but I'm saying she's a more well-rounded, warmer character.
The thing is about Linda Hamilton and Terminator 2, look, they're both, James Cameron has this fixation on like this warrior mom archetype that he
and good for him. I dig the cliche. I do.
Yeah, it's totally a thing with him. Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 has like she's in a particular slightly different set of circumstances where like she does feel like she's at war and she's like trying to prevent something, whereas Ripley, she's kind of drug along these events. Like she doesn't actually want to be there, and it's not really until like the introduction of Newt, and admittedly I'm jumping ahead, that she has something, that she feels like she has something, because her actual daughter is dead, she feels like she has something to fight for, and at that point, like you start to see Ripley, the warrior woman, which she's great at. Like she is an amazing action hero. Like, but it is a very. I agree that she's warmer and more open than Linda Hamilton, but again, like it's because she's not proactively seeking out a fight. A fight is coming to her.
She comes on this fight because they've said, hey, because we don't trust you.
They basically bribe her.
Yeah. You blew up a ship, so you're going to drive a forklift, is what she decides to do.
Also, the company never admits in any of that. They totally sidestep it. That company knew.
Oh, yeah.
They knew there was a ship there before.
Yeah.
They knew there was something. They sent a synthetic that was probably going to kill everybody and bring that. They sent somebody before to bring it back.
Yeah.
But it's been 57 years, so anybody who might have remembered that may or may not have gone in some database somewhere.
Yeah,
but they don't address anything because they're awful corporations.
They're always
concerned about money. In fact, I one thing I did find funny is because it's dollars. Like the way inflation has run, when they go, oh, it's like $42 million. Like no, that's got to be worth way more than
$1 million. Yeah. I'm hoping it's a futuristic currency that is not, because there's no way. Right. The money makes no sense at all.
But just the way they approach, and eventually we see how it's going to work with Burke, who's probably, one would guess that he went back and started searching all the databases to go, ooh, that sounds like something I can earn some cash with.
Jesus
because
Christ.
He's horrible. But just the way that they approach it, it doesn't matter. And also, right now, it probably would have been simpler had she never shown up, because then it was a tax write-off or whatever. Well, we lost another thing, amortize that off the next 20 years, and we get a tax break. So part of it, because it's a corporation, is like, how come somebody had to be alive? And even I love the salvage guys find that too. There's a
there goes our salvage.
Right.
They're so mad. It's like Rain deals with all this stuff in environmental, dealing with all the environmental parts of her job, and you get people who go, oh crap, we found these salamanders, that's going to ruin we can't build a road through here, or there's a cave. And so when the salvage guys, it's it would have been better for them had they not found a living person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's
At
the
least
same
they're not
way, like
just
they've written
slightly
this
more
off.
corrupt. I mean, they could, if they were slightly more corrupt, they could have accidentally kicked a
Yeah,
light.
if Paul Reiser had been there, he would have been like, "What
Yeah.
living person?"
Right.
Oh no, she was totally dead. We should.
But
get
I'm
this
not
I love
actually a bad guy.
I love that Paul
Yeah.
Reiser's character is so horrible that his sister hit him and his mother said good when he died at the premiere. That's super funny.
That's great. I mean, but he is just so awful.
Well, I mean, it when you don't, I'm trying to remember. It's so funny because in the theatrical version, because we don't see any of the stuff where the colonists are down there and they get a call, hey, we're going to go check out this coordinate that the company said to check out, and the colonists go out in a truck and they got a little girl and she screams and her dad comes back with a face hugger on him. None of that happens in the theatrical version. So all we have to go on is just the call to action, which is Burke knocking on the door and says, hey, turns out, you're not going to believe the coincidence. We have lost contact with that colony that we just mentioned happened to be on the planet that you landed. And, and so off we go. There's not a moment spent. And I actually honestly cannot decide which is better. Because
I think it's better to understand that she's kind of the reason they're there, because they weren't on that side of the planet. And so because they find her, and I guess she tells them where the ship was, sends that family out there to go check it out. And so I think that
agree
makes a lot
with
more
that.
sense.
First of all, it makes Burke's villainy more personal instead of
that's true.
like, oh, I'm here now and these aliens are super intriguing, like I should try and take one back. Instead, like it also makes the whole loss of the whole colony his fault. So he has like
colony beginning with the loss of Newt's parents and brother, and then he's going to go ahead and sacrifice Newt too, which is his plan.
Well, not only does he want to bring an alien or a facehugger back, he wants to cover his own ass too.
He wants to sneak them back, which is crazy.
In Newt and Ripley,
right? And somehow in Burke's mind, you have to think this.
You know what? I take it back. He's worse than Walter Peck.
Yeah, he's super evil.
He's super evil.
I'm still trying to work out his plan because we're skipping ahead, but it's fine. Burke's plan is once he's there, he's like, okay, we only got 2 living facehuggers. What I'm going to do is have them lay eggs down Ripley and the little girl, and we'll freeze them and carry them back.
I don't necessarily know that he had who it was going to be in mind. He just
until he figured on that.
He's opportunistic, so he sees. Oh heck! For some reason, which again, these are the things that bug me. And one of the things that bugs me is why the hell didn't they A, not kill those facehuggers when they see them, and B, let the little girl sleep in the room with them? I was just like, what is wrong with you? So the little girl's cot is for reasons left, and I mean, I get why a med lab person would have a cot there, but they could have moved the cot out to a different room. So the little girl's room.
I mean, I don't think they were expecting them to escape.
But it doesn't matter. I still would never have a little kid sleeping in a room with horrible creatures that killed her parents, and so or the kind. So anyway, so she's in there, and then Ripley puts her badass, BFG on the bed that she's just gotten trained on, and lies down because Newt's sleeping under the bed because she's used to sleeping on the floor now. So Ripley's under the bed with her, and then when she wakes up because she realizes that a facehugger is loose, her gun is gone and they're locked in. So he has opportunistically seen, oh, they're both in there now. All I have to do is set the facehuggers loose and take her gun and lock them in, and we're good to go. And now the plan is the facehuggers will lay eggs in them. He brings the ship back with him and kills everybody in there. They meet an unfortunate accident in their sleeping pods. The rest of the crew is what Ripley surmises, and that's what the plan is. And then the 2 people who look like they're fine, because once the facehuggers fall off and die, they don't look like they're. I mean, I think he's forgetting that Ripley would never have. She would assume that she'd had an egg laid in her. But anyway, the idea is they're unconscious, or who knows.
It's a dumb idea because they're going to get to the space station back on Earth. He's going to wake up rubbing his head going, oh man, look, everybody's dead but these 2. Oh well. And then what? How is he going to avoid
here's the thing with that. So to Julia's points, the cot's in the med lab because that is the most quiet place because it's soundproof. And we see that whenever, and that's
There's
why
no way.
she's like, again, yeah, okay, the face hugger's there, but they've been safe all this time. There's no reason to really assume anybody would let them loose. B, they do say, hey, let's kill a face huggers, and Paul Reiser goes, no, they're worth too much money, because that's all he can think about.
Why he's a big fat liar from the thing he said earlier.
Although, in fairness, I mean, they do also keep having like the sort of fake out with Bishop, because they're keep trying to like, oh, Bishop's going to go crazy like the last android, which doesn't end up happening. But he's like, well, I need to keep them alive so I can figure out what makes them tick, so we can more easily kill them, and or if someone gets impregnated with an alien, we can figure out a way to save their life.
But
which is legitimate.
But Burke does go, hey, and he gets the confirmation just like they did before, except he's the man on the... Now, everything he says, though, when you're like, hey, that was a stupid plan, what he's really proposing, if you listen to what he's talking about, is he's not just going to go, oh, oops. To some people, he's going to say, oops, these people died. To the people who matter, who are going to give him money, he's already going to say, hey, guys, I'm bringing home the alien thing that you wanted 57 years ago, 58 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. An enclosed room where we can study the alien. Yeah. No, I know. He wasn't planning to loose on the world.
It's not a bad plan, because by the time, if it had worked out, what he would have gone is, oh no, Marines, we have to get out of here. To the people who matter, to the bioweapons division, which is where he's going to make all his cash, he's already going to contact them on some channel somewhere. Now, that, by the way, I brought home the coffee you wanted.
Yeah.
And the bio division is going to go, wow, we did want that coffee.
Yeah.
They are going to go, yeah, LV426 coffee. That sounds great. I am so happy that you got that from them, because the colonists had just found it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that would have been that, right?
Yeah, but I've seen enough zombie movies to know that even in a world where Carter Burke is the hero, that plan is probably still not going to work. I mean,
of course, and that's
there
the whole
is
point.
No
is the
world
corporation
where that guy is the hero.
There's no way that's contained, right? That's the problem.
They're gonna think they've got it, and it's not gonna.
Well, maybe in Ayn Rand's Aliens, he
I'm
would
just
be the
saying,
hero.
even if you put your head into, all right, I'm following his plan to get to bring the aliens back to Earth, but we'll keep them in a med lab where we're going to study them and maybe make future smart guns out of them. No. I guarantee you, the planet Earth has 30 days.
And that's why, like, the fact that he values money over everything else, like, to him, there's no way that this can fail,
right?
Because there's no way that he won't make tons of cash out of this. In fact, when she says, "Hey, this is a bad idea," he goes, "Just think about it. I'll cut you in on it." Like, he makes these bargains on how much she can also make if they just work with him. And that's again why he is true evil.
Yeah.
Because he knows exactly what he's doing. And he cares about nothing but his profit and what he's going to get out of it. Everyone else but him is expendable on every level. And that's what makes him evil. And that's what makes true corporate evil people in real life evil, is there is nothing but them. They're narcissists.
I think the casting of Paul Reiser in this role, though, was a good choice.
Oh, yeah.
Because he doesn't immediately say villain.
Right. He's a guy.
He's like, hey, I'm this affable person. You can trust, even though he leads with, I'm a good guy.
He can be a romantic lead, as we saw from the successful Mad About You show that he had.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's a chumminess about him that makes you feel safe with him. And like you believe he's legitimately concerned about Ripley when she's trying to readjust. And then, it's slowly ramped up that how insensitive and callous he is through the whole, film. And I don't think that would have worked if you had like a more classic, imagine if they had cast Alan Rickman in this part. You would have known he would have been the bad guy. You would have been like, that guy's a bad guy. Like, you would have known it within 5 seons. He's like, that guy's a villain. Like, whereas here, like, it does give you, there's a little bit of doubt. And
Yeah.
it's funny, like the way they introduce like him versus the way they introduce the Marines. Like when you're introduced to the Marines, like they all seem like assholes.
Well,
Like
can we
they're
talk about
talking
that?
about like having sex with like the townie girls
Sure.
and these colonies, and they're kind of dickish to Ripley, and by the end of the movie your sympathies are with them, and you hate Paul Reiser. So like they flip it, because in a lot of movies the sort of like gruff around the edges characters would have ended up being exactly what you thought about being. They would have been a-holes.
I'm with you a little bit in that, but I want to put a little bit of an angle on that, which is to say that at this particular time, I believe that this movie is part of this big new romance that movies are having with the military that's different from, remember, like Hollywood in the 70s is totally kind of disgusted with military service. It's kind of, and Vietnam has been really just damaging to people's emotional welfare, and there's not a lot of comfort with hanging out with the Marines.
Yes and no, because like when you have Ripley's reaction shots, and remember Ripley's our end to the world. Her reaction shots to like when she's listening to these soldiers is one of disdain. Like she's like, oh my God, what a bunch of meatheads that I'm stuck with.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, you'd already had stuff like First Blood and I guess Rambo, in fact, to come to think of it. And so or had you had Rambo by this time? Rambo First Blood. Rambo was 85. Rambo. Just the year before. So I'm saying we're at this time when we're kind of rehabilitating all of that. So
we're also
I think Cameron has
Commando.
I think Cameron. Sorry.
Yeah. So Commando has come out before this. We're on this path to where the military or paramilitary taking things into their own hands and having to really like, let's solve this shit.
That's had a research.
The through line that's happening as we ramp through the 80s. Right.
So what I'm saying is, the fact
I agree that is a thing. I just think it's more complicated here, especially because not just because, again, the way Ripley reacts to them, but also because once these commandos who are talked up as being so formidable, once they are dropped down on this planet, they are ineffectual. They get their asses kicked.
Well, that's where it's again masterfully done, because there's this whole section where they show you like, these are all the weapons. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Look at these missiles. Look at these bombs.
Well, they even have.
We're expecting. I love Hudson doing her katana with the smart gun.
Sure.
Like that. That's
But there's an expectation. People who have seen the first one are probably like, this. You don't know what you're getting into, right? Because we're foreshadowing that. But there's also a level of, again, we're kind of ramping up this, how we're going to do. We're in Reagan era. The military's everything. We're going to get more and more heroic military as we go through the 80s. The expectation for some people is, that's right, this time the aliens are going to catch it. Because look at these Marines. Like, you can't. How could they lose, right? And that's what they're thinking as well. Because,
by the way, they do help a great deal. I mean, look, Hicks is super helpful. Bishop is super helpful.
And I'm not even saying I'm not even
like Bishop because he's an android.
True.
Well, I'm not making a judgment call even that it's military good, bad, whatever. No, but there's an expectation of. There's no way they can lose.
What were you going to say, though? Because you started out saying something, and then I was curious because
Drew's point is a good one, which is, Sigourney is our viewpoint character. She doesn't trust them, but she also doesn't trust Bishop. And, so there's plenty of good stories that start with these two people don't trust one another because they come from different viewpoints, but they learn to work together. It's fine. Rambo teams up with a Vietnamese farm girl who has become a commando, and they begin to share a viewpoint on the world. That's totally cool. I'm just saying, no, this movie is in love with the military. It is.
I disagree with that. I don't even think Cameron. I think Cameron likes the military to a degree, but I think he's got a complicated look like, look, I think it's a bad movie, but like, look at Avatar and
No, but
like
I'm going to agree on this one
Interesting point.
that there's definitely like yes, there's complicated feelings about the military because you have the fact that a lot of them are obnoxious, but he really worked hard to make them seem like they were because he actually filmed the first scene last so that they would have the camaraderie, like they would know each other, because he wants them to feel like a group. And also Al Matthews, who plays the sergeant, I'm forgetting his name now, it's like Alpone or something like that, is that it?
Apone.
But anyway, Apone, yeah, he is actually in real life the first Black Marine to be promoted to sergeant in the field during service in Vietnam. So clearly there's some respect, like he's bringing in this guy, he's giving them camaraderie, he's giving them Vasquez.
I'm not saying there's no
Vasquez
respect.
doesn't even get to wear a helmet. She's such a badass. I mean, everybody else gets to
I'm not saying there's no respect for it. I just think it's a complicated.
Yeah.
It's not the complete full-on raw of like something like Commando or.
So getting back to this is the movie that does the best. Remember how we've talked about what else are we going to watch? Are we going to watch ripoffs? Are we not going to watch ripoffs? This is the movie that does it well. But what really shows you something about the culture is what becomes the cliche. The cliche is always a very bad boil down of something that was seen here. So we're going to see, as Tony mentions, we're going to see a lot of hard talking, big gun carrying Marines in space after this forever. Right. I don't think we're ever
even in like frickin' Jason X has these, and
it's like a trope, and I can dig it. I like movies that beat your expectations, and sometimes, honestly, I like movies that meet my expectations. Sometimes I know exactly what that movie is.
I think this movie does better because of the stuff that Julie was just talking about, like that sergeant. Even though he doesn't have an abundance of screen time, he's a fully realized. Like, there's some of the Marines that are not. But like the sergeant, like from the moment that when he's getting out of the little cryo tube and he puts the unlit cigar into his mouth,
it's so
like,
great.
He had a cigar there.
Know who this guy is.
I love the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Every meal is a banquet. Oh, he's great. I love him. Yeah.
And I mean, and although Hudson, for example, is over the top, but in general, if you have enough friends who are vets, because I didn't serve, but I have friends who are vets, like, of course, you watch enough movies. I mean, we eventually get, Full Metal Jacket and tons of movies that, show us what it's like to be in the military, or at least, kind of the movie version of the military, which, is fairly realistic in parts, right? Like, there is an APONE, there is, there's a reason why there's these stereotypes within all these movies, is the basis of truth and what you know about basic training and all of that. And plus, this is a person who actually served, so he's really drawing on that experience to sell it. And even though everybody else is over the top, like, it feels believable even if you didn't serve, because you've seen this, you watch enough stuff, you're like, oh, this is the military, right? Or this is the movie military. So I think they do a really great job of, defining. It's like you said, Cameron's really great at giving you, here's where we are, here's the people at any given moment.
Boy, you could
learn
it's
a twist, because as we get introduced to everybody, you know exactly who everybody is within 5 minutes of meeting every single person. And that economy of character building and introduction is, if you can do it, because not everybody can, is pretty fascinating. And even how they deal with Ripley when she shows them, by the way, I'm not just a civilian, here's how I handled this loader, which is pretty heavy, pretty complicated piece of equipment, according to when she shows off, and they're like, all right, like that proof of this isn't.
Look at the
I'm not
elegance,
Burke, right? Like, she proves early on that she's not Burke.
Isn't that amazing, by the way, the elegance there, that he managed to work in? She lost her license, so she spent a week or two working on the loading docks. So now she has added a skill to her jacket, which is that she can run this mech. That
Also, great foreshadowing because, there's no point in time when they're on the planet, and if you haven't seen it before, I never thought, oh well, she's gonna use that against an alien queen.
Right? No,
Even
it's
when she
amazing.
So when she does,
when
that's
she
pretty
uses
awesome.
it, you're like, how is this gonna help you? I don't see how you're gonna and then sure enough, it's awkward, but it does help. It's like it's
Right.
pretty interesting fight.
Yeah,
It's cool. It's such a great concept, and you have to imagine how he thought backwards. He's like, all right, the queen's very giant, so how can a 5'3" or whatever the hell she is, tall woman, maybe she's
Tall.
5'10".
She's like 5'8" or 5'9" at least.
Okay, how can a tall woman, nevertheless a woman, human, face off against this like 15-foot armored monster? Well, what if she puts on a giant suit of armor and clunks around and has like grabber hands? Okay, well, how do we put that earlier in the film? Brilliant. I just watched this and I'm just taking notes. I'm just like, this is a masterclass in storytelling to me. It's an honor to watch it and see how it does what it does, and it makes me disappointed in so many other things that I've done and that other people have done. But it's astonishing. So anyway, where are we? I don't even know if we're actually moving our way through.
We jumped ahead a lot.
Yeah, but that's okay. I guess we can imagine really once they get to the planet, that's really the point where they start investigating and getting picked off. And it's a shame. It's good that we've met all these characters before, because then their deaths are more painful, and Michael Biehn and Lance Hendrickson start to sort of elevate themselves as the final guys that are going to make it through. Michael Biehn as Hicks, who's almost a love interest, almost slightly, in a movie that would take more time. Go ahead, Tom.
You know what's interesting too that I didn't really notice? I guess I thought about it, but when you're analyzing to talk about it later, one thing that's kind of fascinating is Hudson, for all of his bravado and boneheaded, I love weapons, I'm gonna say the most crass thing at any given time, he's actually the computer tech guy.
Yeah, that's true.
He's not the IT guy from Jurassic Park. He's their actual like, hey, go hack this computer, go get us into this door, find all the maps, do all this technical stuff. In fact, that's what calms him down when they give him a task of quit being a meathead, go be a tech person.
You're so right. I haven't thought about that until just now when you said it. But it's not just that, but it also shows Ripley being a natural leader, because that's when Ripley starts giving people tasks and says, I see that you are losing your shit, but I know that you have skills. Please go find a schematic of this place because we need it fast. Please go do that.
Before we get too far off from talking about the Marines, I mean, not that it's something we'll go back and forth of a lot in this episode, I'm sure, but there was the question that was put forth last week on if they had encountered aliens of any kind before in this universe.
I don't know the answer to that. So
I do think you have an answer. I think by some of the dialogue that the Marines have, that you get the sense that they have had to do
so-called
similar things to this, just not with such a horrifying life form.
Maybe why they're so cocky, because they're probably like, come on, just because. Well, but remember, none of them. They do say she's apparently seen an alien, and none of them seems to have seen an alien, because that they say it as if she's special because she's seen an alien. But there's also this idea that
they bug hunt, indicating that they've been chasing like space raccoons somewhere that were no big deal, but they had to kill a bunch of them or something.
Yeah,
but they don't consider them aliens. So like, I don't know, because it's really, you get the impression that they both at the same time think that she has seen something they haven't, but that it's also no big deal. You know what I mean?
Well, the difference when they say, but that makes the difference when they say, is this another bug hunt?
Yeah.
It's that mentality. It's actually lower, quote unquote, lower life forms. None of them expect to encounter an alien that reasons and outsmarts everything.
This time the bug hunts you.
Right. So when they go, oh, it's another bug hunt, they're hunting something as if, like it's not humans, it's below that in perceived intelligence anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why when they meet these things, it's actually super scary and not at all what they imagined.
Yeah.
Right, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a hard time coming up. Anytime I think about these creatures in like the most ludicrous comic booky sense of like where I'm stacking them up against other monsters and other science fiction characters, I have a very hard time thinking of characters that wouldn't have a difficult time fighting these things because they are so over the top and deadly. Like there is, because there's a bazillion comic books. There is one scene though that when they did Superman versus aliens that is burned in my brain is both disgusting and amazing.
I can't wait.
Superman being one of the only characters that would be able to dispatch these things with relative ease. He gets
I think Godzilla.
Godzilla would curb stomp them, but he gets Superman gets an alien impregnated into him, and when it starts to try to burst through his chest, it of course can't because he's fucking Superman. So he flies up into space and literally vomits an alien out.
That's hilarious.
That's great. I love
it. Alien 0, Man of Steel 1.
Yes, that is really great.
I mean, I guess it's better than any of the alternatives that could possibly come about with that.
Yes, I guess that's
oh wow, yeah, I hadn't read that.
It was a fun little crossover, and sorry I'm digressing, but
I would love to read like Avengers versus Aliens. I think it would be cool to see
the most obvious one.
I mean, you did because they called them the Brood.
I called them the Brood.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of the many ripoffs of this.
Yeah, the most obvious one that they only have done once was Aliens versus Green Lantern, which I thought would be like that's like should have been the first one you did because they're both in space. But instead, like, well, I mean, Alien versus Predator, is
still to this day, I have no idea why they didn't just shoot. I mean, it can be a million ways, but I still a little bit miffed that we never just got the original Dark Horse Alien versus Predator, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
That first issue, especially where they kind of end it like, oh, things are about to happen. The fact that we got what we did and not that comic is still just a shame to me.
To be honest,
because
I don't
it's all right there.
Tony, I read some of the Dark Horse Aliens comic, which followed Hicks and Newt after this movie. Years later. So Newt is a teenager and blah blah blah. I never read any of the. I haven't read any of the Aliens versus Predator. I haven't seen any of the movies. The concept never.
The movies are pretty forgettable.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't. There's every movie. There's little bits, but I do not have. I don't ever feel like going back and watching, especially the original Aliens versus Predator.
I binge watched the entire Predator franchise, like when the new Predator movie came out a few years ago, and I rewatched them, and I can tell you, like, they're extraordinarily, outside of some cool creature effects, like they're extraordinarily forgettable.
So, let me ask a dumb question. Do they, in these Aliens versus Predator movies, who are the principal characters? Are they humans?
There are humans, and then predators. No, but there's one especially that I disliked, where it was very cynical and dark, and in ways that I just found off-putting and not. I just didn't enjoy it.
I have no problem with those two universes coexisting with each other because it's a big enough. It's a big enough outer space to where I can think, okay, these are two species I could conceive of existing.
And that's why I'm kind of sad that, because when that first crossover came out and you read it and you're just like, oh, this is what I wanted right here. This is like peanut butter and jelly. This is the Reese's peanut butter cup of alien crossovers. And then when the movie came out, it wasn't that story for various reasons. Part of it is, I think you'd probably have to get sign off from Cameron or his people, or there's a lot of reasons why it didn't happen, but that was disappointing to me because it was the most fan-based thing, but it also felt super cool. And I was still disappointed that we haven't seen
I
that.
wouldn't be surprised if like neither one of these franchises are going away anytime soon. So
Right.
like that,
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't be
every
surprised.
crossover that's happened so far is it's not that. And that could just be me. I mean, if people dig it, like, you know, again, dig what you dig. It doesn't really work for me, but I'm not the arbiter of that, right?
Sure. No, and I think you should be allowed to say, this doesn't work for me at all, and these are the reasons, and I can even feel real strongly about it. But also, hey, the world is big. I got very little judgment for people who really like something, except in the very, very, very rare exceptions. So anyway.
So
okay.
going back to the creatures in this movie, like I feel like that the added mythology, one of the reasons why I think this is a superior sequel compared to most sequels, is every sequel adds on mythology, but like what we learn about these creatures in this movie make them seem so much more scary, but also so much more like something like, geez, what if something like this was actually out there? Space is awfully vast. And it's like lots of little details, like, you know, there's a throwaway line by Bishop where he's saying, oh well, once they die, the acid in their blood will eventually become inert. And it's like, that's like, it doesn't ultimately like affect anything, but you're like, it's like a biology lesson, like you're learning stuff.
Yeah. And why they're not dangerous anymore, because then it adds to this thing like, oh, why aren't there you're just stepping on these things and they're full of acid
burned everywhere.
right, and that's why, because it gets denatured. That's
I also wanted to chat about, so we should talk about the Queen. I think we already talked about the Queen a little bit, but I wanted to talk about Bishop, because we haven't really spent much time on him, but we should, because remember, this is before Data, right? And it's after Ash. I'm trying to think of other major androids, nice androids that had been around.
C-3PO,
right? I mean, so humanoid, like perfect humanoid androids like this were still pretty unusual, and he's wonderful.
And is this after RoboCop or right before?
This is before RoboCop, yeah, by like a year, yeah. So there isn't a lot to put him up against. We might think of some more. And have to mention it on the Facebook page. But in any event, he is part. They've already established in the Alien universe. That's such a great pickup from the first movie. Is, oh, let's have another one of these androids, you know. And he's got special skills. He can like move super fast. But he, you know, and you eventually find out he's exactly as he presents himself. He's totally nice. Bishop is great. He's a great guy.
Robots are people too.
He's wonderful.
And also because it's Lance Hendrickson, which is awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing. I love this character so much. I love that he is sacrificial, but he also acknowledges that it is a sacrifice. So he says, you know, I'll go. He's like, I know, I'm not excited. I can't remember exactly what the line is when he says he's going to go retrieve the other ship. Yes. But he's basically like, you know, I know it's not going to be fun and I'm not looking forward to it, but I should go. It's like, so it's not just I'll go because I'm an android and I have no feelings. It's, no, I have feelings about this, but I'm doing it anyway because I think it's the right
says something like, I'm artificial, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm synthetic, but I'm not stupid.
Very good. Yes, synthetic is the word they use. You know, and to be sure, that makes him as a fairly emotionally mature artificial man who nevertheless is programmed to always put his own self-worth below those of the organic humans around him, kind of a sentient slave. And that is not a question that we're even qualified to address in the movie Aliens. I mean, but there he is. And he's a good guy. You want a universe, god damn it, where we have 2-3 more movies with this cast, the one that survives this movie. That's what you want. And maybe we'll talk about that some more when we get to the end, which is probably.
And I do love, speaking of the end, I love that they preserve the part of him that's left so that they can rebuild him.
He has his brain in it, which seems to have
yeah.
working intelligence and stuff.
Well, I mean, he's still able to move around, and he's just a torso. Like they
Yeah,
built
not only
him.
move around,
He's
but like
tougher than
literally
he's tougher than Ash.
Yeah, he can save the little girl's life with it, and even though he's just arms and a head, basically.
Yeah, in fact, instead of walking through the rest, we should probably just talk about whatever points we should bring up for the rest of the.
Well, I would like to take a moment to talk a little bit more about the Alien Queen, because I mean we brought her up, but like
yeah, we haven't talked about it. So go ahead, please.
First of all, to paraphrase Tony many times, give it up the practical effects.
Yeah.
Like, I have a bit of a personal history with this thing, because when I was a kid, a couple of years after they came out, there was a touring exhibit that was going to museums, which was Hollywood effects of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it had like a bunch of the props from this movie, a bunch of props from Ghostbusters, a bunch of props from RoboCop and RoboCop 2. And I got to see the Alien Queen and the Walker rig that she fights the Alien Queen in, like up close and personal. And it was still just like mind-blowing how big this animatronic is. It's huge. And I don't know how many people it took to work, but like there's just something magical about that. Like they made an animal and it's believable. And I love like the whole business of like them showing like the way she lays eggs and like the personality they give her, that she is, when Ripley blows up her eggs, like she takes it personally. Like it makes her mad. Like she actually goes
Ripley too. Ripley threatens the eggs, and the Queen tells her like minions to back off, which is pretty great. It's like a Lex Luthor kind of thing. It's amazing.
Well, it shows that it's a thinking creature instead of just like this isn't just like like a generic dragon or something. Right. Like there's a thought process going on, and I would say the Alien Queen as an animatronic is almost as much of an actor in those scenes as Sigourney Weaver is, and I am just astounded at like still at the effects work anytime. Like there's some stuff that you watch in this movie that looks dated, like some of the the matte paintings and things like this, but the Alien Queen looks just as good as when this movie was new. Like it's just an amazing special effect.
All of it, the way she moves is impressive. All of that stuff with the egg sack looks really great.
It looks organic, doesn't it? I don't know what the hell it is, but it's amazing.
The kinds of things that they have to do to make it work, not just the Queen, but the face hugger alien that moves across the med lab, that they created an actual robot to do that. In here, like the Queen, the puppet that they created was too big for the elevator, so they have to like do all this crazy effects, removing her tail and making the back black and having smoke so that you can't tell that she's too big. Like there's just so many crazy things that they're doing constantly to make it just look fantastic. And it just looks, you don't even think about it when you're watching, because they really pull it off.
Also give it up for this aesthetic also gives us things like the final boss in Contra, the video game, and countless video games past Contra. But the ripple effect of this,
I've never seen that game.
It's a side scroller, which basically is Rambo and Stallone and Schwarzenegger as alien fighting side scrolling gun shooting heroes. But the end is pretty much Alien. And there are monsters throughout it. There's even like pseudo facehuggers that pop out. But there are tons of video games ripped off this aesthetic and kind of the Alien Queen idea. Especially in the era where a lot of the bosses you couldn't have them move a lot, like they were so big because they were boss monsters. But the ripple effects of this movie in particular create tons. And Capcom eventually makes Aliens. Or was it Konami? There's Aliens versus Predator games, and then Konami made a bunch of side scrollers. But there's a really good Aliens arcade game.
You're talking about the trope where basically the boss is so big and so involved in some sort of important task that they're basically almost more like a landmark than a moving thing.
And there's a great Konami made the Aliens arcade game, which is actually really good. Like seeing, especially because you get the flamethrower. It was so awesome.
I think also like thematically, there's like a whole thread in this movie about motherhood, which is weird because it's like there's this machismo about it, but as much as it's infatuated with the military, this movie's infatuated with motherhood.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of machismo in being a mother because that's why the idea of a mama bear is so scary, because a mother whose child or child substitute, in the case of Ripley, is threatened, it becomes very strong and very scary. So
absolutely.
You've got Ripley versus the Queen, and they're both wanting to protect their young, and they'll go to any lengths to do it.
Well, Ripley goes to almost, some would argue, insane lengths, because like Bishop's like, well, we have 19 minutes to get out of here. I would love the time that whole sequence and actually see if it takes.
They said it was real. No, it says in the IMDb that it is the 15 minutes or whatever it was. But yes,
Wow.
The thing is that she had promised her little girl that she would be back for her birthday, and she wasn't. And so then when she made the promise to Newt that she would never leave her, she's like, I can't break that promise.
I think it's absolutely it makes the most sense for the character. I think
yes and no. I mean, I actually didn't think except for the fact that it's Newt, so obviously it is going to be the case. But up until that point, I thought once the alien grabs you, you're a goner, and there's no point in trying to rescue.
Well, that's actually something I wanted to point out. Like throughout the entire movie, like if like the Sarge gets grabbed, like he's being cocooned like the rest of those people right now. Yeah, but when it's Newt, she's like, "Oh fuck no, I'm going and getting Newt."
They're like that. We never leave a man behind, or whatever the expression is, except for if the alien has him out. Yeah. But not a kid, then we.
Yeah, and I mean, look, maybe that makes Ripley a hypocrite. I think it's also like the Cameron being smart and knowing that our sympathies for a child are probably a lot stronger than they would be for a bunch of soldiers who,
given what she's gone through and what she's survived, and the fact that Ripley made that promise.
Well, and she's an interesting character in her own right, in that like she alternates from being really childish to being kind of like sage,
super badass.
Yeah.
Tony, you were going to say something.
Well, the difference too is when the Marines part is happening, they can't really prove how intact any of those people are.
Yeah.
Whereas Newt gets captured for all intents and purposes.
Right.
She just disappears. So it helps with the, hey, how is she gonna, should we come after her? Well, as far as we know, she was taken as undamaged as you can be when an alien gets you. Whereas the previous part, it was so chaotic and so insane. They leave them, and they want to go back and get them, but it makes a lot more sense because you still don't even know if they're, how damaged they are.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that most of those Marines were torn apart and probably eaten.
Well, I mean, it's also super. Sometimes you deliberately have characters go back on something they made a point of saying earlier in the film, just for dramatic effect, and
it's not played as dramatic, other than like, I'm going to get Newt, and I'm fine with that because it goes along with the themes of the movie. Right. And one of the themes is motherhood, and it's also Ripley. I said this earlier. She has post-traumatic stress disorder. It's Ripley confronting her trauma in a very physical way. Like she's gonna, go down there and face. Essentially, she's going down in the hell, and she's facing a devil, and
that's pretty amazing. Literally rides an elevator down. Yeah, you're right. And that sets up that big final fight,
which is so good.
Which even pays off with a moment of
Hendrickson apparently having to be constantly drenched in rotten milk that nobody else could stand.
Poor guy.
Yeah, that had to be not fun.
But what an amazing God! The whole thing with Lance Hendrickson being ripped apart, and so the Queen has, of course, hidden on the damn ship because that's
what they do.
they do.
Stealth
And
juggernaut that she is.
so she so when he's like standing there, she impales him with her claw, which is another great practical effect because they have to do one of those flippy.
And the way they stage it, it looks like it's going to be another chest bursting at first,
yeah, exactly.
which is cool.
But then it does, then you have to go, why would a chest burster take over an android? But whatever. But that's not what it is. She's impaled him with her claw, and then she rips him apart. But he's still alive because he's an android. But now he's in pieces, and there's all the milky blood coming out. But anyway, and then so then again, like the effect of Lance Hendrickson having to be acting with this torso, it's all so crazy and amazing. And then the thing with the, like you said, the fight with the only weapon she can find is to get into the mech and fight, hand combat.
Well, they pay off like that she was a forklift driver, essentially.
That's the other great thing. We've talked about several of those payoffs. Is that Cameron does this other elegant thing where anything that's introduced gets used. And that's just so incredibly elegant. It's exactly what Shonda Rhimes said in this class that Julia and I were watching, where she goes, "If you introduce something, use it. If you don't use it, don't introduce it." It's amazing, If there's a reason Ripley's given a daughter, that's it, is so that it can pay off with her wanting to protect Newt. Everything has a counterpoint in the script. It's again masterclass.
And how cool is it too? There's a lot of Cameron has a lot of tech fetish, right? He loves to make.
Oh, for sure.
He loves to improve tech, like for his movies, but also you can see that on display. Taking the motion sensor idea from the first movie and turning it into this suspense-driven, they're getting closer thing.
Yeah.
And the number of people who've also ripped off that motion sensor that's in this movie.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't you? Because it's so cool and iconic. The sounds are iconic. The way the suspense builds is masterful. Taking those touchstones from the previous movie, but then changing them and using them as big payoff moments. It's like you said. I mean, there's a lot of masterclass things in the movie as you move along.
I think this, the fact that you have the first movie being as good as it is, and this movie being as good as it is why I think everything that comes after it, and we talked a lot about it before we started filming. There's some interesting stuff because they got interesting filmmakers, but none of them come together quite as well as two, not just one, but two very tough acts to follow. And not even Ridley Scott coming back to this franchise could really get it back on track. And in fact, I would argue that the two prequels kind of made the original two movies a little lesser if you count the mythology that those prequels, look, you can disagree with me, you may love the prequels, I wish they didn't exist, but
what I find fascinating is I think even because since this movie especially, you've had comics and novels and other, it's become its own insane franchise media sensation,
whatever the hell you want to call it.
And and that's part of why Prometheus, he was so cagey about, it's not really alien. I mean, of course it is, but part of that is realizing, like, what do you do when the thing you created has taken a life of its own?
Yeah,
it's become its own perfect merchandising organism. In addition to being this perfectly designed organism, right? Like, there's aliens, everything, and there's action figures. I think part of that is the realization of, well, if I just say, it's technically Aliens, this new sequel or Alien prequel, is that going to do me a disservice? Because now I've got to follow a kabillion things that have been made, right?
Well,
and so I think that's part. I think that is that. What do you do whenever it's like this? And I like bits of the prequels. I dislike bits of the prequels, but I just
don't know that they added anything by I don't know that these things needed an origin.
I tell you,
I was fine
No,
with believing that they were the lion of whatever world they're from.
Right.
You know, and like, God help you if you ever land on that planet. Like,
Right.
like that's
in the prequels, and the funny thing is, I know I saw Prometheus, but Alien Covenant, everybody keeps mentioning it, but it may as well never have come out. I literally have. Did it do well, that movie? Because I
It
have
did pretty well.
I'm sure.
no memory at all about it existing, which I guess I'm terrible. I mean, how awful is that?
No, I mean, if a movie didn't make an impression on you, it didn't make an impression on you. I think it had some good acting in it, and here's the thing: like, it's like I was saying, I would call, with the exception of the Alien versus Predator movies, everything that comes after this, I call them, like I said, I call them prestige failures, because they have really interesting filmmakers.
I guess maybe I have seen this because it had Billy Crudup, and yeah, I guess. Yeah. Boy, this is weird.
There's some great parts. Also, again, regardless, I kind of withdrew because regardless of if you like the movies, like how they play out, all of them, production design on all of them is pretty damn fantastic.
Sure, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well,
especially even like Covenant had all those
filmmakers.
drawings, and like how like all of the ancillary parts of that movie especially were just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's this a movie in the Alien franchise has to be kind of elevated. Like they don't, even though like they never can seem to quite equal these original movies. It seems like they try to put a lot of effort. They get good actors and good directors, and it's like they are aware that there is like a legacy that they're trying to live up to.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for not just trying to put out shit. I just feel like I don't have as much malice for the two sequels, even though like I don't think that they're great. I think they're interesting but very flawed. But the two prequels, I feel like sometimes, my problem with prequels are tricky because I often feel like you have a way of just kind of destroying your own the mystery of your own mythology, which I feel like
I agree with that. Also,
do.
There's always the question of who the hell, like, who cares? Because you've already met the characters you care about, and so how they got to where they started at the beginning, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And we're going to get to the end of the story. We're still before the so but I could be wrong.
Also realize that 3 and 4 were also very storied about studio manipulation or things happening that stymied some of the creativity that went into it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the end of this, and then we should mention at least how we get to Alien 3. So,
but part of my point is Aliens is probably the last point where this is what launched the juggernaut of merchandise. Yeah. Of what the alien world was as a franchise. This is the franchise launcher right here, right?
Yes.
And I think that is what makes the difference post Aliens, is once real money gets involved in the fact that this was so good and so popular that licensing, merchandising, everything this is the beginning of that. Like, there was Alien merchandise and people loved it, and there were comics, there's a lot of stuff. But Aliens is what made it Star Wars as far as selling things, right?
Yes.
And I think that's the big difference. Like, after this, things change drastically as far as merchandising, marketing, franchise storytelling, what builds off of this, how you license stories, how you tell stories, the imagination of people, and the studio wanting to go, whoa, this thing took off, let's capitalize on that. And I think that's what makes the big difference, because between Alien and Aliens, there was stuff, but not to this degree.
Yeah, that's true. That is totally, totally true. There was a little bit of merchandising after Alien, but this damn thing, with all the weapons and multiple creatures and all the uniforms and the guns and to me, honestly, the vehicles, the flying vehicles, the big wheels on the rolling vehicles. I mean, it's G.I. Joe, this thing is.
Right.
Really,
And eventually we got Ripley Reeboks,
Right.
not
Right.
too long ago, like the past few years. So in general, this is where things change and why it gets harder and harder to just take the chances that this movie takes, taking a creature in the house sci-fi movie and moving it towards a paramilitary.
Yeah.
A paramilitary meets motherhood allegory.
Yeah.
Is given hey, okay, James Cameron, take that and make this is what changes so many things. But
right.
because the stakes aren't as high, even though we're going to make this big budget movie and we're going to get a person at the top of their game, you don't get that same kind of latitude when different amounts of money or potential money. We got to have the next thing, right? Like this becomes, how do we get the next thing?
Absolutely.
And that wasn't so much the case between the two movies.
And we've seen that so many times, because that's what somebody was writing about that in their biography. He was saying we had just made an independent film that was a huge hit domestically and overseas. But now that the studios were interested in how well we did that, they wanted to put all these controls over us so that they could ensure that we would be a hit domestically and overseas, when that was what we had just done. And that was Bruce. It was Bruce Campbell in his book. Yeah.
A lot of the people involved in those choices will never, ever get the tale of the golden goose. The goose that laid the golden egg.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
You can tell it a million times, and every time they'll go, yeah, but what if we could reverse engineer the goose again? No, when you cut up the goose, you lose all of it. You don't get eggs, and you don't have, you don't get any of it. And they'll go, no, this time we have lasers to help cut the goose. I'm sure we can extract 2 million more eggs if we just do it this way this time. And they'll never get that. Yeah. That will never sink in of why that's a bad idea, ever. Yeah. It's fascinating to watch and sad, and makes me sad a lot of times. But time and time again, somebody has decided, this time I know how to clone these geese or cut them in a way that are somehow or another we're going to get this. And every time it's just, I don't know what the deal is. You can tell them that a million times and they'll mess it up every time. Crazy.
So as I mentioned, the movie ends with what appears to be the cast of, in theory, the next adventure, going into cryosleep. Bishop, who's going to get fixed.
I'm not accepting that it's not.
Little Newt. Well, I'm telling you, in the Dark Horse comics, this is the cast. Okay. Hicks and Ripley, and they are all headed back to Earth, having, and we're going to have probably many more adventures with this new family.
Life as mother and daughter, because they both lost their actual mother and daughter, so
right,
be their life now.
And that's it. And what I am fascinated by, and this is a major spoiler. Turn off the thing now and jump forward until you started talking about our endorsements. This is a spoiler for Alien 3. I believe that the reason that they did what they did at the beginning of Alien 3, which is to kill off everybody but Ripley in the opening credits, is that the guy whoever was writing Alien 3 was like, I don't want to do these characters. I feel suckered into being stuck with these characters. I want Ripley by herself. And for some reason, chose the way to do it was to kill them all off, when you could just as easily have just jumped the story forward, 8 years or something, and not bother.
Well, I mean, for some reason, the path this franchise decided is that we keep having to have Ripley getting propelled further and further into the future through various acts of technology. But I agree that I don't necessarily think it was necessary, but Alien 3 is an intriguing movie at times. And, I agree. Tony brought up before we started recording that it's kind of daring that they just arbitrarily wipe out the entire cast. Yeah. Although Bishop does have a small cameo in Alien 3.
This is a good scene, but it reminds you of what could have been done with these. Okay, well then tell me this. Is it possible that I'm not alone? That there's a good chance that a lot of the audience was like, I'm going to have a hard time connecting with this because I feel kind of.
I definitely think there was a lot of people that were burnt. I don't think that you're alone in that at all. here's the thing, though. When I watch a movie, I do often find myself trying to, even if it's like, oh, even when I look at that and go, oh, that is not the choice that I would make, because I'm a creative person. So I think about it. I do try to take a movie on its own terms, and I'm willing to go along with the ride as long as it has some intriguing elements to it, which Alien 3 does. I don't think it ever quite congeals the way that the first two movies do. It's a bit all over the. Both of the sequels are a bit all over the place. Tony and I are kind of on polar opposites. He seems like he likes Alien 3 more. I definitely like Alien Resurrection more because it's just kind of bonkers. But I don't think either. Don't confuse that as me for saying that I think either are great films per se, but they're intriguing and they were made by good filmmakers who have done better things away from the franchise.
Well, when there were only 3 of them, I actually liked Alien 3, and my argument at the time was that they are 3 movements of one great work. That the first one is very scary, and the second one is very exciting, and the third one is very mournful. But now I'm much more. I've just gotten stupider as I've gotten older, and so I don't even understand what the hell I was saying. And now I just sort of am mad that they kill the characters off. So I don't know. I've gone backwards.
But you're allowed to feel that way because you're emotionally invested in Hicks.
I think most people I know hate 3, especially because of, or they go, well, parts of it are good, but I can't believe they killed off, like, what was even the point of Newt? In fact, Rain didn't want to watch 3 because she was like, oh, so they're back. I was like, well, she just went, I don't want to see that movie.
Right.
Like, I'm going to pretend that Newt.
Just like apparently Guillermo del Toro wanted to. It was just like, nope.
But I think most people I know just hate the beginning and the setup so much.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I totally understand it because I kind of want that too.
Yeah.
But something about it, and maybe it was, again, when you go to see a film, your mindset has so much to do with how you ingest that movie and absorb the themes. And for some reason, 3 just worked. A lot of 3. I'm not saying it's not a perfect movie, but a lot of it, I didn't mind a lot of the critiques that people had, even though I could understand why people are angry or why they hate it. It's one of those where I was like, these things didn't bother me in the same way, but it's valid.
Yeah.
And then, like Drew said, I don't like 4, but I think maybe because I was such a fan of City of Lost Children and Amelie and Micmacs.
Oh, right, yeah.
I guess Micmacs is after, but I love the aesthetic. I love the director bringing back cast members that are in his movie. Maybe I had higher expectations. I really love the production design of 4, but I don't ever really go out of my way to watch it. I especially love the design of the Betty, the ship in it. Oh, man, it's such a cool ship, and there's so much awesome production design. But I don't enjoy that movie as much, and it makes me kind of sad because I like so much about what maybe in my head maybe I just wanted something different and I didn't get that, and that's kind of disingenuous, I feel, but the heart and mind what they want, I guess.
Yeah I'm with you. So we should wrap up our final thoughts on Aliens. This has been such a wonderful conversation. It was Drew, Julia, Tony, and then I'll go. Drew, I don't know if there's anything you can think of that we haven't talked about, but final thoughts on Aliens.
I think we, through one way or another, covered anything that I'm sure when I'll be trying to sleep, I'll think of something. But I think this is a terrific movie, and if you haven't seen it for whatever reason, like, I would be stunned. But never regret spending time watching this one. Just such a good movie, and it was fun to revisit it for the podcast.
Did you watch the? I'd love everybody to mention. Did you on HBO Max? You can see both the theatrical version and the extended.
I watched the director's cut.
Yeah, which I think is called the extended version. I don't think there's any difference between.
On the Blu-ray, it's called the special edition version.
Golly, there's so many. I wonder if there are subtle differences between those.
Not that I know of, but I didn't watch it on HBO Max. I have the one that's the box set that's kind of like a booklet
trilogy or whatever it was called. Yeah. Julia, final thoughts. Aliens.
Yeah. I think that like I say, there's the few things that just annoy me, and then there's just excessive violence for me personally. But gosh, the effects are just out of this world, literally, and the performances are great. That I just think that Sigourney Weaver, I love Sigourney Weaver, I adore her. So for me, she really just makes this film amazing. So yeah, I think for sure it's a must see for anybody who hasn't seen it, and hope with the course of the trigger warning that there is a lot of violence. But and if you're like the actual guy who's in it, who is a veteran, was like he's got his own shell shock stuff that he has to deal with making the movie. So there's a lot of that, but yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything that we didn't. I mean, like Drew said, I'm sure there's a million things we didn't cover, but nothing that really stands out as being super important to me. So yeah, I can't believe it took us this long to get around to these movies.
It is remarkable, isn't it? Yeah, Tony, what are your thoughts?
I mean, like I said before, you could spend several podcasts just covering this movie. It's a 2-hour and 37-minute long movie if you watch the director's cut. And it's done really well. So I always feel like there's tons of stuff that we could mention. Lots of trivia, lots of ephemera. But I have really enjoyed the discussion because I think, going through the themes, I'm intimidated because it's such a storied movie because it is such a good lasting touchstone. It still looks amazing. I watched it on our projector this time, and holy cow, it's still just so much of it's great. There's a couple of process shots that maybe don't hold up as much, but at the time I thought they looked amazing.
Yeah.
Also, we're looking at it on Blu-ray. The scan sometimes that reveals a little bit more, but probably not more since I saw it in the theater. But so I am intimidated. I'm sure there's a million things we missed. However, I like to talk. I think the discussion of themes and how they relate and how we all process them is the meat of kind of where we come from, right?
Yeah.
You can study this. You can still study it. The way it's put together, how it flows, how it looks, how it sounds, especially. It sounds amazing. I wish I had like a 5.1 system to really, every time I've seen it on really good theater, spatially, it's fantastic as well. And, it's also, if you try to go to sleep, it's really hard, evidently, according to my grandmother. This isn't an easy movie to sleep to either. I'm
and
sure.
You know what? I am one of those people who always falls asleep in movies, and I did not fall asleep in it, so I have to concur with your grandmother.
So James Cameron did that well also. It's still just that personal bit for me is just still every time I think of Aliens.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I also think of coming out of the theater and just how funny, and then also telling my mom that and her laughter because that was what we called a Meemaw moment.
Right.
I know my grandmother's Meemaw, and there were many just things that Meemaw did that fit with just her outlook on everything. So that was really great. But yeah, I mean, it's an amazing film to dissect. I would be fine talking several podcasts worth of just what a phenomena, and the fact that it launched such, the amount of things it launched, both in copycats, as production effects. Cameron loves to build off of each thing that he does.
Yeah.
So, we're seeing a moment where he's going, well, this technology will lead to this. And he's a really fascinating director and tech person in that way as well. So each new film builds off the last one, as far as how he's trying to push things. And that's also very fascinating. And the cast and crew, everybody's just at the top of their game. You'd be hard pressed in the action world. You may find a movie you like better, or that works for you, or maybe has this or that technical bit, or something that you might consider more artful. Like you might prefer a Kurosawa film because it does a certain thing. But you'd be hard pressed to find a movie that is a more perfect encapsulation of everything this movie is. The only thing that comes close, I think, in a lot of ways, is T2, which is also Cameron. So there you go.
Very good. This movie came out in July of 1986. One thing I remember when it came out, these are my final thoughts, is Incher, who, I work with on all the Castlebridge stuff, we went to see this movie. And it was an R-rated film. So we're 14 years old. So we have to convince the guy that we are 18. And so we buy our tickets. We go to the usher, and he goes, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 18." And he goes, "You are 18 years old." And and I said, "Sure." And he looks at Incher and he goes, "You are 18 years old." And we go, "Yes, sir." And what's that?
How old were you actually?
14. We were 14 years old. And he finally was like, "All right, fine."
I love that he's like, I don't get paid enough to deal with punks.
I just love that. Oh, yeah, it was great. Went to see Aliens. My dad had made granola that I brought in baggies, and it was a good day. Summer 1986. Anyway.
All kinds of law breaking going on there. Food. Goodness.
Is it against the rules to smuggle in your own granola? I don't know. I guess. Such a crazy detail. Anyway, yes. I love this movie. Like I say, it's a masterclass. I can learn so much just from watching it. It makes me aware, are my characters doing this? Do I know who they are the moment I've spent a scene with them? I should, and Cameron knows how to do it. It's pretty amazing, So I really enjoyed exploring this thing again. And in my mind, there are multiple universes of the Alien universe. And, there's this group that we have at the end. They go off and have adventures afterwards, and it's great.
And then there's the one version where Superman vomits up an alien.
Yes.
I want to find that.
Yeah,
Superman versus aliens. It's worth a read.
Easily gotten. So yeah, let's do endorsements. That is whatever you've been reading or watching that you want to share with the rest of us. Drew, do you have anything to share?
Well, what I've been getting into this last week or so, it's something I've endorsed before in the past, but I think I'm going to endorse it again. Not only because I've been watching it, because my sister-in-law, Rebecca, was nice enough to give it to me as a Christmas present, but because I feel like it's timely because the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer just came out a few weeks ago and people are still arguing about it online. I've been watching Godzilla the series, which is the 1998 animated series based on the very reviled TriStar Godzilla reboot. But the animated series is actually really good and true to the spirit of Godzilla. If you can get back past the fact that they use the reboot's design of the character, I think that you would find that there is like a lot to love. Like they even do like a full on there's like a 3-part episode story arc where they do their own version of Destroy All Monsters. And I just really love it. It's got a lot of it's got a very different tone than the movie it's based off of. It's actually probably a little bit more serious in tone than the movie it's based off of. But it's probably one of my favorite incarnations of Godzilla because, first of all, I just have a affection for Saturday morning cartoons, but, this one was particularly well done. And if you're a Godzilla fan and you've avoided watching it because you think, oh, I hate that Matthew Broderick, that Godzilla versus Ferris Bueller bullshit, this ain't like that. This is
What?
this ain't like that.
What are you talking about? Ferris Bueller? What is that?
Godzilla versus Ferris Bueller, Godzilla 98.
Godzilla.
Thing. Godzilla versus Bueller.
Ferris Bueller actor, whose name.
You just mean that he's in it, but not that
he
there's
is
actually
in it. There's not a movie where Godzilla fights Ferris Bueller, to my knowledge.
There's a Ferris Bueller Godzilla thing that I missed.
Not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, they kicked around the idea of having Godzilla fight Batman, so I mean, anything's possible.
Right. I forgot
I really think that if you're a Godzilla fan and you haven't seen this, you need to do yourself a favor, and it's easily obtainable on DVD pretty cheap, like on Amazon. So like enough time has passed from 1998. Let the healing begin with Godzilla the series.
Wow, that's thank you very much. That's a really interesting endorsement, and I appreciate that.
I'm sure I've endorsed it before. Like I think when it was on Netflix a few years ago, I endorsed it, but I like it enough that I'm giving it a double endorsement.
Excellent. Very cool. Julia, I mean, hey, listen, if you want to watch Matthew Broderick in the 1998 Godzilla, we can definitely do it.
I never want to watch that, but I will watch the animated series that is based off of it all day, every day.
But Julia, do you have anything for us? I don't know if you do.
I do. I took in the new film, The Little Things, which is it stars Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto, and it's it's an interesting. I guess I'd almost call it a detective movie. Really, is what it is. It's not really. It's kind of a serial killer movie, but that's not the point. The point is that it's more about the detectives and their process and what's going on with them, and it's pretty interesting. It's mostly for the performances that it's interesting. I would say that it's not action packed or anything, so don't watch it thinking that you're going to be on the edge of your seat the whole time. Although there are a few times when you are, but yeah, it's a neat film, and it's available in theaters and on HBO Max. So I think if you like any of those actors, then you'll really enjoy the performances, and even if you don't, it's pretty neat movie.
That'll be the only thing I'll endorse either, because I've been just super busy, and I did watch that with you, and I do recommend it, even though to me the weirdest thing about that movie is that it really does feel like it has been transported from the 90s. It wouldn't have been the best serial killer movie of any given when 1994. Right, and that's when it was written. It actually was written back then, and they just didn't make it till now. So now it looks like a retro movie, but it's actually more like a time warp movie, and that's actually kind of fun. So, and a good cast. Tony, do you have anything to endorse?
Yeah, I've got a few things that I've been enjoying. I'm back down the Prime rabbit hole. I went down hey, you're watching sci-fi stuff, let's show you some more old sci-fi stuff. So I watched, also there's this great mixed media, The Fabulous Baron Munchausen from 1962.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful, and I don't know how I missed it. English subtitled. It's just really cool. It's a different Munchausen, although you can see like this production design is great, and it has this, parts of it are animated. It uses a very kind of classically silent movie kind of look in a lot of ways. That was really fantastic, and that's on Prime from 1962. I also watched Invasion USA from 1952, which is this.
Oh, cool!
Hey, if we don't have enough military, this is what'll happen.
Hell
That's
yeah,
crazy.
All right.
And then there's what's called a double dose of sci-fi called Hostile Planets and Doomsday, which Hostile Planets isn't even called Hostile Planets once you get to the movie. It's called Battle of the Worlds, and has the most grating jerk of a scientist put to film. Like, there are others, but this guy takes the cake, and he's just the worst. It's amazing. And so so those are things that I've been kind of going through. Music wise, I got to give a shout out. We're all trying to make it through everything right now, and I think one of the Facebook pages that I've liked, and I like the guy who kind of curates it. If you like my band Deserts of Mars, there is a Facebook page called the Stoner Rock Army, and I'll post it on our page. But lots of people post there. It's run by a cool person. I spend a lot of time going through music that people post there. It's been I'm part of a lot of doom band, stoner rock pages, because that's where we kind of fit in. And then also that's the music I listen to a lot. But Stoner Rock Army, super cool. They try to keep it like, hey, it's all about music. And I find that to be a really cool place to go, just to go, hey, where's cool music? Okay, right here. And those little pockets of places to go, escapism, can be few and far between, given how much social media we ingest and how news cycles work. So in addition to just going down the sci-fi rabbit hole with Munchausen and Hostile Planets / Battle of the Worlds and those kind of things, that's where I've been. Oh, also on Prime, by the way, Three Musketeers from '74 is on there, which I hadn't seen in forever. But yeah, mainly it's all about just finding. I still to this day, I know I've said it a million times, but I still to this day just love how Prime is now the place to go. Used to be Netflix years ago, but now Prime is firmly like, here's some weirdo crap because you like weirdo crap.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean that in the most affectionate terms.
Right?
It's not crap, really. It's like, just go for it. And it's brought me so much joy especially because I have a lot of insomnia. I stay up late. I keep weird hours, and Prime Video and these double doses sci-fi and all that kind of stuff just has really been amazing. And like I said, contrasted by just this, I had no idea this version of Munchausen existed, and it was just so neat to see all the work and production design and just how it's all put together. It's really fascinating. So
that's wonderful.
For artsy.
Thank you, Tony. And that brings us to the end. I am so thankful that we had a chance to talk about Aliens. This was a blast. We have to figure out what we're going to be talking about next week, because it's a little more complicated than we thought. So we will let you know soon enough. And so
again, a lot of, like we said in the book, a lot of people ask us, well, how far do you plan? How, we're not, I hate to reveal, maybe I'm revealing too much, but we probably don't plan as much as we should, maybe. And it's a lot too soon.
Go back. We had communicated that we were going to do Alien 3 next, but that actually might not be the way we go. We might do something else.
Which is this, Tony, that we're talking about?
What? Oh, yeah. You're talking about the Castle of Horror, Book of Great Horror, which I always
available on Amazon.
Yes,
exactly. But either way, I like that we all kind of, it's fairly democratic as far as what about this, what about that, but also probably much to the chagrin of regular listeners, it's not as planned out as it might be. That's not always the case, but certainly in this case, we'll surprise you, but we'll let you know ahead of time so you can watch the movie. That's always a given.
and we had certainly planned on watching Alien 3, but to be honest, I think not everybody in the crew wants to watch it, and we don't even know if we can find substitutes. Meaning no disrespect, but who want to watch it. So maybe we'll get back to it another time. So we're throwing everything up in the air. We'll be back to you with a revised schedule soon. All right. Nevertheless, thank you very much, everybody. It's been really wonderful talking about this, and I will see you real soon. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.